The stars looked different from Neptune's orbit. Lieutenant Danny Walsh noticed this as he sat at his communications station aboard the deep space vessel Intrepid. The ship had been on patrol for 3 months now, and Danny was counting the days, until they would head back to Mars where his girlfriend waited. Danny sipped his coffee and ran another routine scan. The computer beeped suddenly, making him jolt upright. An unexpected signal was coming from just beyond Neptune's orbit. Definitely not a scheduled mining vessel or supply transport. "Captain Bennett, I'm picking up something strange," Danny said into his headset. "Frequency doesn't match any of our ships or satellites." Captain Laura Bennett appeared on the bridge minutes later, her gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had been in space for over 20 years, and very little surprised her anymore. "Show me," she ordered, leaning over Danny's console. The signal pulsed in an odd pattern. Not random, but not following any Earth communication protocols either. "Could be a malfunctioning mining drone," said Laura, but her voice held doubt. "Plot an intercept course. Let's check it out." The Intrepid changed direction, its engines pushing the ship toward the mysterious signal. As they drew closer, the ship's sensors detected something that made the entire bridge crew fall silent. "That's not one of ours," whispered Officer Joe Miller at the radar station. On the main screen, a small vessel appeared. It had a strange shape like 3 ovals connected by thin tubes. No human had ever designed anything like it. "Are we looking at what I think we're looking at?" asked Danny, his heart racing. Captain Bennett straightened her uniform. "Looks like first contact, people. Sam, get Dr. Ortiz up here now. I want our exobiologist's eyes on this." Dr. Samantha Ortiz arrived on the bridge out of breath. The small, dark-haired scientist had been asleep when the call came. She stared at the screen with wide eyes. "It's really happening," she whispered. "All my life studying the possibility of alien life, and now you get to meet the real thing," finished Captain Bennett. "If they're friendly." The alien ship was tiny compared to the Intrepid. Scans showed it was only about the size of a cargo shuttle. More surprisingly, sensors detected only 6 life forms aboard. "Should we try to communicate?" asked Danny. Before Captain Bennett could answer, the alien ship began broadcasting. What came through the speakers stunned everyone. "Greetings, vessel of Earth, we come in peace and friendship." The message repeated in English, then Spanish, then Mandarin, and continued cycling through Earth languages. "They know us," said Dr. Ortiz. "They've been studying us." Captain Bennett composed herself quickly. "This goes way above my pay grade. We need to contact Earth immediately." She turned to Danny. "Send everything we're getting to United Earth Command, and prepare a response message." Within hours, the news spread throughout the solar system. Humanity was not alone. The aliens called themselves the Verax and claimed to be explorers seeking peaceful contact with other intelligent species. For the next week, the Intrepid maintained position near the Verax ship as communications continued. Earth officials instructed Captain Bennett to be welcoming but cautious. Dr. Ortiz spent every waking hour analyzing the data they received. She was allowed to view live video feeds of the aliens, and what she saw fascinated her. The Verax stood, taller than humans, with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shimmer with a blue-green tint. Their eyes were large and black, set in narrow faces. "Their physiology is remarkable," she told Captain Bennett during their daily briefing. "Based on the movements I've observed, they appear to have incredibly dense muscle structure, and their reaction times are off the charts." "Meaning what?" asked the captain. "Meaning they're much stronger and faster than us," said Dr. Ortiz. "And their brain activity patterns suggest neural networks far more complex than human ones. They could be significantly more intelligent, too." Captain Bennett frowned. "Should we be concerned?" Dr. Ortiz hesitated. "There are only 6 of them on a tiny ship, Captain. Even if they had bad intentions, which I don't think they do, they're clearly outnumbered." The Verax requested to send a representative to the Intrepid. After clearance from Earth, Captain Bennett agreed. The shuttle bay was prepared with extra security, though the guards were instructed to appear welcoming. The small Verax transport docked, and a single alien emerged. "I am Krell, explorer and diplomat," the alien said in perfect English. Its voice had an odd musical quality. "I bring greetings from the Varix Collective." Captain Bennett stepped forward. "I am Captain Laura Bennett of the United Earth vessel Intrepid. Welcome aboard." The meeting lasted 3 hours. Krell explained that the Varax had discovered Earth signals years ago and had been learning about humanity before making contact. The Varax Collective, according to Krell, spanned several star systems and included many different species living in harmony. "We wish to welcome humanity into the greater galactic community," said Krell. "We can offer knowledge, technology, and friendship." When the meeting ended and Krell returned to the Varax ship, the mood on the Intrepid was celebratory. Most of the crew saw this as the greatest moment in human history. But in her lab, Dr. Ortiz studied the scans taken during Krell's visit with growing concern. The alien's body temperature had remained perfectly stable throughout the meeting. No stress, responses, no excitement, nothing. It was as if the entire interaction had been practiced, and there was something else. Under high magnification, she noticed strange implants beneath Krell's skin, technology far beyond human understanding. She drafted a report to Captain Bennett, detailing her concerns, but hesitated before sending it. What if she was wrong? What if her suspicions ruined humanity's first contact with an alien species? The Intrepid received new orders: escort the Varax ship to Earth for a formal diplomatic meeting. The United Earth government was preparing for humanity's grand introduction to the galactic community. As the ships changed course for Earth, Dr. Ortiz finally deleted her report. Surely Earth's top scientists would conduct their own examinations and reach their own conclusions. Her concerns were probably nothing. The journey to Earth would take 2 weeks. Danny Walsh sent a message to his girlfriend on Mars, excited to tell her about the historic events he was witnessing. Dr. Ortiz returned to her studies, trying to ignore the feeling of unease in her stomach. None of them could have imagined what the arrival of the Varax would truly mean for humanity. 8 months had passed since the Varax arrived on Earth. The aliens had established an embassy in what was once the United Nations building in New York. Their arrival had changed everything. Countries that had been enemies for decades now worked together. The Varax shared medical knowledge that cured several diseases. They helped improve Earth's energy production. People called it a new golden age. Sandra Miller didn't believe it. Sandra worked as a junior analyst at Earth Intelligence. Her job was to review communications from the Varax embassy and flag anything unusual. At first, she found nothing concerning. But over time, she noticed patterns. The Varax used certain words repeatedly, words like assessment and suitability. They mentioned resource extraction often. When talking among themselves, they referred to Earth as the target. Sandra brought her findings to her boss, Agent Richard Hoffman. He was a tall man with thinning hair, who had worked in intelligence for 20 years. "I know it sounds crazy," Sandra said in Hoffman's small office, "but I think they're hiding something." Hoffman sighed. "The whole world is celebrating our new alien friends, and you want me to tell the director they might be up to no good?" "Just look at the patterns," Sandra insisted. Hoffman reviewed her work. After a long silence, he nodded slowly. "Okay, we'll set up quiet surveillance, but this stays between us for now." They placed tiny listening devices in areas around the Varax embassy. What they heard over the next few weeks changed everything. The Varax were cataloging Earth's military bases. They were studying population centers. They were mapping resource deposits. None of this information had been requested through official channels. "We need to take this to the United Earth Council," Sandra said. Before they could, Ambassador Krell requested a meeting with the Council. The Varax wanted permission for a larger diplomatic vessel to enter Earth orbit. They called it a cultural exchange ship. The Council meeting was broadcast worldwide. Sandra and Hoffman watched from intelligence headquarters. "The arrival of this vessel will begin a new chapter in relations between our peoples," Ambassador Krell said. "We wish to share more of our knowledge and culture with humanity." The council members smiled and nodded. Only Admiral Alan Garcia, head of Earth's Space Defense Force, looked concerned. "Ambassador, we welcome this gesture of friendship," said Admiral Garcia. "But I must ask, why have you shared so little about your own civilization? We know nothing about your homeworld or your history. Krell's face showed no emotion. All will be revealed in time, Admiral. We believe in gradual cultural exchange to prevent shock. The Council voted. The Varex request was approved. The new ship would arrive in 1 month. Hoffman took Sandra's report to the Director of Earth Intelligence. The director promised to speak with Admiral Garcia privately. 2 weeks later, Sandra was analyzing new Varex communications when she found something that made her blood run cold. A message from the approaching ship to the embassy contained the phrase, "Invasion fleet in position." She called Hoffman immediately. "We need to warn everyone now." Hoffman's voice was tight with stress. The director spoke with Garcia, their increasing readiness quietly. But the Council doesn't want to cause panic or offend the Varex. They think we're being paranoid. Sandra couldn't believe it. Did they see the same communications I did? Politicians see what they want to see, said Hoffman. The Varex have brought prosperity. No one wants to believe they might be a threat. The day the Varex ship was scheduled to arrive, Sandra went to work early. The large view screens in the intelligence center showed the approaching vessel. It was huge, at least 10 times larger than any human ship. As it entered Earth orbit, Sandra noticed something strange on the radar display. "There are more signals," she said to Hoffman. "The sensors are picking up more ships." Suddenly, 12 massive warships appeared around Earth. They had been invisible until now. Alarms blared throughout the building. Emergency channels exploded, with reports. The Varex ships were deploying smaller craft toward Earth's surface. They were targeting military bases first. "It's happening," Sandra whispered. At the Lunar Defense Base, Commander Nicole Wright ordered her crews to battle stations. The moon base had Earth's most powerful weapons. They managed to fire the main cannon at one of the Varex ships. The alien vessel exploded. A brief cheer went up in the intelligence center as they watched the explosion. But it died quickly as they saw 3 Varex ships turn toward the moon. Energy beams shot out and the lunar base went silent. Reports flooded in from around the world. Varex ground troops were landing everywhere. They moved faster than humans. Their weapons cut through armor like it was paper. Their personal shields stopped most human weapons. Sandra and Hoffman evacuated with other essential personnel to a bunker outside the city. There they met General Ryan Cooper, who was trying to coordinate a global defense. "They're hitting us everywhere at once," said the general, looking at a map covered with red alert indicators. "We're being overrun." Sandra studied the tactical displays. "I don't understand. There can't be that many of them. Even with all those ships, they must be outnumbered." General Cooper nodded grimly. "Our best estimate is that they have about 50,000 troops total. Against Earth's combined military, forces of over 5 million plus billions of civilians, we outnumber them at least 100 to 1. "Then how are they winning?" asked Hoffman. A message came through from Dr. Ortiz's research facility. The doctor had continued studying the Varex even after the Intrepid returned to Earth. "The Varex aren't just aliens," Dr. Ortiz's voice said through static. "They're engineered for war. Their reaction time is 10 times faster than ours. They can go without sleep for weeks. Their armor and weapons are integrated with their bodies. They're not just soldiers. They're living weapons." The transmission cut off suddenly. General Cooper looked at the silent radio, then back at the map. More areas were turning red by the minute. "We had them 100 to 1, he said quietly. "But numbers don't matter when the enemy is this advanced. None of us stood a chance." Sandra looked at the tactical display. Most major cities were already under Varex control, but there were spots of resistance, small groups fighting back against the invaders. "What do we do now?" she asked. General Cooper stood straighter. "We fight. We adapt. We find their weakness. Every species has one." Outside, the bunker. They could hear the sound of Varex ships approaching. They didn't have much time. 6 months had passed since the Varex invasion. Earth was a different place now. Most major cities were under alien control. The Varex had set up bases to extract Earth's resources. They kept humans alive to work for them. They needed the planet intact and the people subdued, not destroyed. The bunker where Sandra Miller had escaped with Agent Hoffman and General Cooper had become one of many resistance headquarters. Hidden deep in the Appalachian Mountains, it connected with other resistance cells through secret communications. Sandra stared at a map showing Verax control zones. Almost 80% of Earth's population centers were marked in red. They're expanding mining operations in Australia, she told General Cooper, and they've set up new processing centers in Europe. The general nodded grimly. His face had grown thin over the months of fighting. They want our minerals, our water, maybe even us. But they haven't broken our spirit yet. The resistance had grown. Survivors from military units, police officers, regular people who refused to submit. They conducted hit-and-run attacks. They disrupted Verax supply lines. They rescued humans from work camps. But victory seemed impossible against the aliens' superior technology. 100 miles away, in what was once a high school chemistry lab, Karen Davis mixed chemicals carefully. The former chemistry teacher had never imagined she would use her knowledge this way. But when the Verax took over her town, killing anyone who resisted, she decided to fight back. Karen had discovered something important. Certain chemical compounds affected the Verax. They didn't kill them but disrupted their enhanced nervous systems temporarily. It was enough to give humans a fighting chance. "How's the new batch coming?" asked Paul Jackson. The engineer had once worked on Mars terraforming projects. Now he built weapons for the resistance. "Almost ready," Karen said, filling small glass containers. "This version should last longer. Maybe 5 minutes of effect instead of 2. Paul nodded. That could make all the difference in our next raid. They had formed their own resistance, cell with 20 other survivors. Tonight they planned to attack a Verax patrol and steal weapons. Back at the mountain bunker, Sandra received an encrypted message from Karen's group. She brought it to General Cooper immediately. "Sir, the Pittsburgh cell has found a weakness in the Verax physiology, a chemical compound that temporarily disables them." Hope flickered in the general's tired eyes. "Send them everything they need to make more, and get this information to all resistance cells." The resistance began to have small successes. In Chicago, fighters led by former Marine William Foster ambushed a Verax patrol using Karen's chemical compound. For the first time, they managed to capture a Verax soldier alive. The alien was brought to a secure location where Dr. Ortiz, who had survived the attack on her research facility, could study it. The Verax remained silent, refusing to answer questions, but its body revealed secrets. After weeks of study, Dr. Ortiz made a discovery that changed everything. She contacted General Cooper through the secure network. "The Verax aren't just strong and fast," she explained. "Their enhanced biology requires them to absorb specific radiation frequencies. They get this from special chambers on their ships. Without it, they weaken over time. Can we use this against them?" asked the general. "Maybe," said Dr. Ortiz. "If we could disrupt the radiation they need or block them from accessing it, they would eventually lose their advantages." This information spread through resistance networks. In what was once Silicon Valley, resistance fighters raided abandoned tech companies for equipment. They began working on devices that could interfere with the Verax radiation chambers. In orbit around Earth, the Verax had converted a human space station into their command center. From there, they coordinated their forces and processed the resources they harvested. Ellen Murray, a satellite engineer who had escaped during the initial invasion, proposed a bold plan. "If we could get a team to the orbital platform," she told General Cooper, "we could potentially broadcast a signal that would disrupt their biological processes. Not just for a few minutes, but permanently." The general considered the idea. "It would be a suicide mission." "Maybe," Ellen admitted. "But what choice do we have? Every day they grow stronger while we fight just to survive." After much debate, the plan was approved. A team was assembled from the best fighters and technicians in the resistance. Ellen would lead them. They would use a captured Verax shuttle to approach the orbital platform, then fight their way to the main communications array. The night before the mission, Sandra found Ellen checking equipment one last time. "Do you really think this could work?" Sandra asked. Ellen didn't look up from her work. "It has to. We've analyzed their communication patterns, their patrol schedules, their security systems. This is our best shot." "The odds are against us," Sandra said quietly. Ellen finally looked up. "Aren't they always? They had us beat from the start. They're stronger, faster, smarter. They have better weapons and shields, but they don't have what we have." "What's that?" "Nothing to lose," Ellen said, "and everything to fight for." The next morning, the team departed in the captured shuttle. The Resistance held its breath, waiting for news. Hours passed with no communication. Then suddenly, all Varax communications went silent. Across the planet, Resistance fighters reported the same thing. The aliens were stumbling, confused. Their movements had slowed. Their coordination was gone. In the command bunker, cheers erupted as Ellen's voice came through the radio. "Signal broadcasting," she said, her voice weak. "Most of the team didn't make it, but we did it. The Varax are cut off from their radiation supply. Their biology is returning to normal parameters." General Cooper grabbed the radio. "What about you, Ellen?" There was a long pause. "I took some hits. Not sure I'll make it back. But it was worth it." Her voice strengthened. "Tell everyone. Fight now while they're weak. This is our chance." Across the world, Resistance cells launched coordinated attacks on Varax positions. For the first time, the aliens fell back. Without their enhanced abilities, they were vulnerable. In Chicago, William Foster led Resistance fighters against the main Varax garrison. The aliens still had better weapons and training from centuries of warfare, but now humans could match them in strength and speed. The tide was beginning to turn, but the fight was far from over. The battle for Chicago raged for 3 days. William Foster led human fighters against Varax troops who were no longer superhuman but still dangerous. The aliens had better weapons. They had better training. But humans had numbers and a fierce will to survive. On the 3rd day, William watched from a broken office building as Varax ships tried to retreat. Resistance fighters had captured anti-aircraft guns and shot down 2 of the alien vessels. The rest fled into the clouds. "We did it," said a young fighter next to William. "We took back Chicago." William shook his head. "We took back one city. The war isn't over yet." Across the planet, similar battles were happening. In some places, humans won. In others, the Varax held on. The aliens had been weakened by Ellen Murray's broadcast from the orbital platform, but they were adapting. They had started to build new radiation chambers on Earth's surface. At the mountain bunker, General Cooper received reports from around the world. Sandra Miller organized the information and updated their maps. Green areas showed human-controlled territories. Yellow showed contested zones. Red showed strong Varax positions. "We're making progress," Sandra said, "but they're regrouping. The effect of Ellen's broadcast is wearing off in some areas." "Then we need to hit them harder," said General Cooper, "before they recover fully." A message arrived from Karen Davis and Paul Jackson. They had developed a new weapon using salvaged Varax technology combined with human ingenuity. It could disrupt the aliens' shields for short periods, allowing regular bullets and explosives to harm them. "Send the designs to all Resistance cells," ordered the general, "and I want our best teams ready to strike their main bases within 48 hours. Admiral Garcia, who had survived the initial invasion by going deep underground with key naval personnel, contacted the bunker. He had retaken a small naval base in the Pacific and secured several submarines. "We can launch coordinated strikes on coastal Varax positions," the admiral reported. "Just give us the targets." Hope was growing among the Resistance. For the first time since the invasion, victory seemed possible. Not easy, but possible. Frank Delgado, a police officer before the invasion, led a raid on a Varax communication center near Denver. His team included both military veterans and civilians who had learned to fight during the occupation. "Remember," Frank told them before they moved in, "they're still dangerous. They still have better tech, but they're not gods. They can be killed." The raid was successful. Frank's team captured Varax communication devices that Dr. Ortiz could study. They also found something unexpected, maps showing locations of what the Varax called harvest centers, Frank brought this information directly to General Cooper. The map showed that the Verax were gathering humans at these centers for unknown purposes. "We need to find out what happens at these places," said Frank. The general nodded grimly. "I'll send teams to investigate. In the meantime, get some rest. You've earned it." But rest was a luxury few could afford. The Verax launched counterattacks against liberated areas. In Europe, they recaptured Paris and Madrid. In Asia, they strengthened their hold on Beijing. At a resistance base in the Australian outback, survivors noticed something strange. The Verax were directing most of their remaining ships to Antarctica. "What's down there that they want so badly?" asked a resistance fighter. The question made its way through the communication network to General Cooper's bunker. Sandra studied satellite images of Antarctica. The Verax had built something massive under the ice. "It could be their main base," she suggested. "Or a weapon. Or a way to call for reinforcements," added Hoffman. "We need to find out." A team was assembled for a reconnaissance mission to Antarctica. It included Sandra, who knew Verax communication patterns better than anyone, and Paul Jackson, who understood their technology. Their small aircraft approached Antarctica carefully, using cloud cover to avoid detection. What they saw when they reached the Verax construction stunned them. A massive structure rose from the ice, a tower reaching toward the sky. "It's some kind of transmitter," said Paul, examining it through binoculars. "Powerful enough to send signals to another star system." Sandra's face paled. "They're calling for help. We need to destroy that tower before they can complete it." They returned to base with urgent news. General Cooper called an emergency meeting of all resistance leaders via secure communication. "If the Verax get reinforcements, everything we've fought for will be lost," he told them. "Every available fighter and resource must be directed toward destroying that transmitter." Around the world, the resistance prepared for a final, desperate assault. Ships, aircraft, and ground forces would converge on Antarctica. It would leave other areas vulnerable, but they had no choice. The night before the attack, Sandra couldn't sleep. She walked through the bunker until she found General Cooper still awake, looking at maps. "Do you think we can win?" she asked him. The general was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. But I know we have to try." "Why didn't they just kill us all?" Sandra wondered. "They had the technology. Why keep us alive?" "Resources," said the general. "Not just the planet's resources, us. Human labor, maybe even human biology. They see us as useful cattle." Sandra shivered. "And we're showing them we're not cattle." "Exactly." The general stood straighter, determination in his eyes. "They came here thinking their advanced biology and technology made them invincible. They thought numbers didn't matter against their superiority. They were wrong." As dawn broke, resistance forces began moving toward Antarctica from all directions. Submarines approached under the ice. Aircraft flew low to avoid detection. Ground forces prepared for the most important battle in human history. The Verax detected the approaching attack and prepared their defenses. Though weakened, they were still deadly. Their remaining ships took position around the transmitter tower. General Cooper gave the order that would be relayed to all resistance forces. For Earth. For humanity, attack. The final battle had begun. The sky over Antarctica burned with fire as human and Verax ships battled. Explosions lit up the endless white landscape. The massive transmitter tower rose in the distance, still intact despite the Resistance's best efforts. Frank Delgado led a ground team across the ice. They had dropped from aircraft miles away to avoid detection. Now they crawled through snow toward the Verax base surrounding the tower. "Command, this is Ground Team Alpha," Frank whispered into his radio. "We're in position, but the base defenses are heavy. We need air support." General Cooper's voice crackled through the radio. "All air units are engaged. You'll have to find another way in." Frank looked at his team. 20 men and women, armed with a mix of human and captured Verax weapons. Against them stood hundreds of aliens with superior technology. "We'll find a way," he told the general. Meanwhile, Admiral Garcia's submarines approached beneath the ice. They carried special teams including Sandra Miller and Paul Jackson. Their mission was to enter the base from below, through tunnels the Verax had dug into the ice. 5 minutes to entry point, the submarine captain announced. Sandra checked her equipment one last time. She wasn't a soldier, but she understood Verax technology better than most. Paul had built devices that could disrupt the transmitter if they could get close enough. Ready? Paul asked her. Sandra nodded, though fear gripped her heart. As ready as I'll ever be. Above them, William Foster led fighter aircraft against Verax ships. The human pilots had learned to exploit weaknesses in the alien vessels. They aimed for engine ports and communication arrays, areas where shields were weaker. Squad 2, follow me in, William ordered. Target the tower's power generators. 6 aircraft dove toward the base, firing missiles. Verax defenses shot down 4 of them, but 2 got through. Their missiles hit the power structures, causing explosions and brief blackouts in the base. On the ground, Frank saw their opportunity. Move now while their systems are down. His team rushed forward, using the confusion to breach the outer defenses. They encountered Verax soldiers almost immediately. The aliens fought fiercely, but without their enhanced abilities they could be beaten. Beneath the ice, Sandra and Paul's team exited the submarine through a special chamber. They swam upward through freezing water into tunnels the Verax had created. This way, Sandra whispered, following a map they had created from surveillance data. The tunnels led them into the lower levels of the base. Alarms blared as the facility recovered from the airstrike. Sandra led them toward the central control room, where they could access the transmitter's systems. Around the world, other resistance forces attacked remaining Verax positions. With so many alien troops defending Antarctica, their other bases were vulnerable. Humans reclaimed cities and military installations in fierce battles. In the Verax base, Frank's team fought their way toward the tower. Alien soldiers fell before them, but humans fell too. Frank watched good people die, yet pushed forward. They had to reach the tower's base. We're down to 12 fighters, he reported to command. But we're making progress. Keep going, urged General Cooper. Other teams are approaching your position. Sandra and Paul's team reached the central control room. Verax technicians worked frantically to protect their systems. The humans opened fire, clearing the room. Paul rushed to the control panels. Cover me. This will take a few minutes. Sandra and the others formed a defensive position at the doors. Hurry, they'll send reinforcements. Paul worked quickly, connecting his disruption device to the Verax systems. Almost there. I just need to bypass their security protocols. Outside, Frank's team reached the tower base. They planted explosives on critical support structures. Charges set. We need to clear the area before detonation. Suddenly, a new alarm sounded throughout the base. A different tone, more urgent. What's that? Frank asked over the radio. Sandra heard the same alarm in the control room. She checked. The Verax displays. They've activated the transmitter. They're sending a signal. Paul worked faster. I can't stop it completely, but I can corrupt the data they're sending. In orbit above Earth, the remaining Verax ships formed a protective ring around the signal beam from the transmitter. Human spacecraft, including those that had survived from before the invasion, moved to attack them. This is Captain Liu of the Earth Defense Force, came a new voice over the communication network. We're engaging the Verax in orbit. We'll try to disrupt the signal from here. On the ground, Frank's team came under heavy attack. Verax troops converged on their position, determined to protect the tower. We can't hold them off much longer, Frank told command. Permission to detonate now. Negative, replied General Cooper. Sandra's team is still inside. Wait for their signal. In the control room, Paul finished his work. Done. The signal is corrupted. Any Verax reinforcements will receive garbage. Data. They won't know where Earth is. We need to get out now, Sandra urged. Frank's team is waiting to blow the tower. They fought their way back toward the escape tunnels. Verax soldiers pursued them, realizing what they had done. Frank saw Sandra's team emerge from a side entrance. There they are. Provide covering fire. His remaining fighters laid down suppressive fire as Sandra and Paul ran across the open ground, toward them. Two of their team fell to Varric's weapons before they reached safety. "Everyone clear?" Frank asked, counting heads. "Clear enough," Sandra said, breathing hard. "Do it." Frank activated the detonator. Explosions ripped through the tower's base. The massive structure groaned, then began to topple. It fell in what seemed like slow motion, crashing into the Varric's base and crushing critical systems. In orbit, Captain Liu reported, "The signal has stopped." "Repeat, the signal has stopped." Cheers erupted across all human communication channels. The Varric's in orbit, realizing their defeat, began to retreat. Some escaped Earth's gravity. Others were destroyed by human forces. At the Antarctic base, surviving Varric's troops scattered in disarray. Without central command, without their enhanced abilities, their coordinated defense collapsed. 3 days later, General Cooper stood in the bunker looking at the map of Earth. Green areas now dominated, showing human-controlled territories. The red Varric zones were shrinking by the hour. "It's not over," Sandra said, standing beside him. "Some of them are still out there." "But we've won the major battle," said the general. "We've taken back our world." Frank Delgado entered the room, his arm in a sling from a wound received in Antarctica. "The question is, what happens when they send more ships? The signal was corrupted, but eventually they'll realize something went wrong." Admiral Garcia joined them. "Then we'll be ready. We've captured enough of their technology to defend ourselves. We've learned how to fight them. And we've learned something else," added Sandra quietly. "They had us outnumbered in technology, in biology, in every conventional measure of military power. They thought we had no chance." "They were wrong," said General Cooper. "Numbers aren't everything. They didn't account for human determination, for our will to survive, to adapt, to never give up." Frank nodded. "We had them 100-1 in numbers. They had us 100-1 in capabilities. And in the end," Admiral Garcia finished, "none of them stood a chance against humanity united."